Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Thursday, November 13th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download from that webpage a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to those even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, and if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you choose to tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Drag-On Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, please feel free to do so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you, we'll address it on the Internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. I greatly appreciate whenever anybody chooses to do that, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work, which is to be a service. You can also join us live most weekdays from 11 till noon Central Time. Go to zoom.us and enter the meeting ID number 853-2357-4173. That's 853-2357-4173. And if you enter, you'll have the freedom to show your video or not, and talk or not, and or type in the chat room. You can also call. We use one of the many numbers that Zoom makes available, and enter that same meeting ID number and enter the call just on your phone. When you do, you'll be muted, and then you can use *6 to toggle in and out of mute. So, greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, and we want to continually remind people that even if I seem to be in the middle of a conversation or a monologue or reading something, we welcome comments, questions, answers, etc. So we're here on a Thursday. We're going to have a support group tonight. All the information you would need to be able to join us or forward that to somebody else. All the information is available on mindshiftersacademy.org website. And there's a separate login page for the Thursday group. So, what's on your mind? How can we help you or support you? Susan Bingham, thank you for the link this morning to the Alan Watts talk about spirituality and addiction. I attempted to get a transcript of that so we could reference it, but it will not allow me to get a transcript of it for whatever reasons. I got a nice update email from Kate, who works with Guy Finley. They're down in Florida, and they're working at getting settled in. And this last Sunday, when Guy Finley was doing his talk, he talked about change and about how change is a part of everything in life. And if everything is always changing, then is anything really changing? And, Kate was talking about how that's such an appropriate set of questions and observations for everybody involved in the Guy Finley community and his work, because they've moved from one coast to the other, basically. And dramatic changes in the life of pretty much everybody who's been close to his work or working on the team there. So I will get back to reading from the book, One Love, One Life, One Journey, which is the new early release version of Guy Finley's latest book. I'm still waiting on, I asked Kate some questions about the publication and whether or not it's on track or if they've delayed it or they're going to do something else with it. And just once again putting in my bid for an invitation to interview Guy Finley once again. So here's his book, One Love, One Life, One Journey, written by Guy Finley with Dr. Ellen Dickstein. And we're reading in the 6th chapter. This section is titled The Triumph of Light. Susan Bingham put the link to that YouTube talk in the chat room, and it's Alan Watts talking about the link between spirituality and addiction. So here we are back in Guy Finley's book, Triumph of Light. Let goodness prevail in your life. And Guy Finley writes, over 4 decades ago, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame songwriter and performing artist Neil Young released an album with the spiritually prophetic title, Rust Never Sleeps. Guy writes that Neil Young could see the presence of corruptive forces at work in the world, as well as the fact that they would spread out like the rust that gradually consumes the metal that it contacts. And he was right. Pain, inaction, and injustice dominate the news these days, everywhere around us, from small towns to major cities. Wrongness seems to be winning. But what is dark in this world only dominates as it does because of the absence of capital L light. This is where you and I have the power to make a real difference. We can do what is, quote, light, close quotes, which is the same thing as choosing to do what is right in spite of the circumstances. Each and every right action that we take not only helps to illuminate the world around us, making it a better place, but it also serves to eliminate darkness and all that may have grown in its shadowy world. And the clearer, the better we understand this fact, the truer rings these words from a Wesleyan preacher. Quote, "Do not curse the darkness, light a candle," close quotes. Sometimes one has to fight for what is right. Sometimes there's no other way to meet any injustice. Trying to stifle a sneeze. Sometimes one has to fight for what is right. Sometimes there is no other way than to meet any injustice that the moment brings with the intention of setting it right. The task, though, and here in parentheses he writes, "And here is the trick," close parentheses, the task is to take whatever actions are necessary without allowing negativity to seep into oneself. Hatred, resentment, judging the character of the opposition, all of these states and thoughts, they're not only useless, but they're spiritually destructive. We must do the best we can with whatever we understand is the right and true way to proceed. If we don't, and if we won't allow ourselves to be inflamed, meaning if we stay watchful instead of blindly willful, then we will leave that situation, that trial you might call it, a truer person, a better person, a stronger person in our core. Whether or not we believe or we think in terms of we've won the desired outcome. We can never hope to be free as long as any part of us struggles with or suffers over what others are doing, what they have done, or what they won't do with their lives. So that sentence is so worth repeating. We can never hope to be free as long as any part of us struggles with or suffers over what somebody else has done, may do, or didn't do, or won't do with their lives. Because if we could remain aware of the often compromised state of our own character, if we could remain aware of how we still do those things to others that we don't want to do, then this awakened conscience would stir in us a new need. You know, as I read this line, we will never be free as long as we are struggling with or focused on or trying to change something outside of us. It reminds me of a talk I gave once at a Unity Spiritual Center, and it happened to be near the 4th of July, so let's ask these people if they like the idea of living in a free country and democracy and all their individual freedoms, and everybody's yay, and they're clapping. 4th of July freedom talk. And then I said, now, let me ask you a question. How can you ever be free if you believe the people and things outside of you create and maintain your emotional state? And you could have heard a pin drop. It's the same wisdom that Guy Finley brings out here. We can never hope to be free as long as any part of us, he says, struggles with, I would say, focuses on or obsesses over or generates upset in response to the thoughts you have about what other people have done or haven't done or will do or won't do with their lives, that's based on how you judge they should be doing it. And then again, in the second part of this paragraph, he brings in the concept of this compassion, this empathy. And when you wake up and realize, he says it in other of his talks, when you wake up and realize that you can't stop yourself from doing the very thing that you think you're upset with this other person for doing, that's when compassion comes in. That's when you awaken that part of you that truly feels the connection and the compassion with everyone and everything. Guy Finley goes on and writes, rather than worrying about whether so-and-so gets his or her comeuppance for being the kind of person that he or she may be, our intention should be elsewhere, or could be elsewhere. Not only would it be focused fully upon being in the now moment in my own life, wherein I would be working to let go of old resentments that won't let go of me, but I would also have the comfort of knowing that there is always a greater system of justice at work behind the scenes. He writes, a great part of our inability to release this conflict-bred sense of feeling ourselves to be hostage, and we're being held hostage by the way others behave. But when we can wake up and realize that perception is born out of a mistaken perception, that belief is born out of a mistaken perception, then in our ignorance we believe we must fix others who have done us wrong. Otherwise, justice won't be served. However, the truth is far from this polar view and the chain of victims it serves to create. Blame, shame, guilt never leads to the solution of any problem. It does lead to the creation of a procession of victims and perpetrators. And it creates the perception of victims and perpetrators in the minds of people that engage blame, shame, and guilt. He goes on and writes, there are great powers at work around and within us all the time. And as we awaken to realize that these same perfect principles are already in place to empower us, this same understanding puts us in relation with a whole new order of freedom. As St. Paul taught those who were willing to listen, quote, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Close quotes. Now our present problem, Guy Finley writes, is that we don't understand this principle in operation because we can't always see with our physical eyes. Its unfailing fruition. So we don't always get to see the effects of our choices immediately. They'll eventually be manifest for us. We won't escape them. There will be consequences for what we choose, and yet we don't always instantaneously see the fruits of our choices. But he writes, be assured what is evil in nature never goes without its reward, just as what is good is always rewarded in kind. Now, as we read this work of Guy Finley, we don't know if he is aware of the ancient Aramaic definition for evil being unripe or just way off the mark, an energy that's way off the mark. And yet it fits very well here, right? So whatever is unripe, whatever's unfinished, whatever's inappropriate, whatever goes against life itself and the extension of love itself will always produce a certain kind of result, even if you're not there to see it the moment it happens. So he writes, these forces of instant righteousness, or perfect balance, if you prefer, are always at work. Nothing escapes their imperceptible presence. Everything yields to the weight of their judgment. And lastly, here is a beautiful lesson in invisible justice, one that will help you let go of any revenge-filled, self-tangling thought. We need never concern ourselves with whether or not some wrongdoer will get his or her due. Here's what any person who does wrong to another here's why we don't need to concern ourselves with it. Because any person who does a wrong to another person is already punished, because we're all connected. Because every time I hurt somebody else, even the least of the other people, I'm hurting myself and everyone else. Guy Finley goes on and says, more correctly stated, anyone who acts unjustly in life instantaneously ensures that he or she will be corrected by the celestial laws that govern all such trespasses. It doesn't matter one bit that you or I didn't or don't see this law as it's enacted, and maybe we're not satisfied with it. It doesn't matter. The fact remains, an invisible system of justice for all already exists. This means we need never judge anyone, nor wish some sentence of suffering upon him or her. This understanding is a gift of great freedom known only by a true few. And we can count ourselves among these liberated ones if we're willing to learn what we must. So there's a learning that has to happen here. There has to be an awareness that I might be able to fool myself into thinking I can hate somebody or hold vengeance thoughts, or I can be passive-aggressive, and it won't bother me at all. It won't hurt me at all. But it is going to be detrimental to me as well as the other. So this invisible system of justice already exists. And then he writes, now we can leave these people alone to their own trials and torment, for we have seen that their negative nature is one and the same as their punishment. And further, we've seen that whatever weight we would try to add to their backs only falls on our own. He quotes Dr. Martin Luther King here as saying, quote, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that, close quotes. And Guy Finley writes, to act from this higher self-awareness, excuse me while I click in a few more people who want to join the call. To act from this higher self-awareness not only helps free us from the initial pain born of a negative reaction to what others have done to us, but it also keeps us from wrongly investing ourselves in trying to correct what is already in the throes of being corrected. Right? Life is flowing. Life produces consequences for the choices people make. I don't need to be the one giving people consequences, unless, of course, it's my children, in which case I'm only doing it because I can do it in a kinder, gentler way, so they learn lessons in a safer environment. But in life, I don't need to bring justice to another human being. As Guy points out, there's a lot more going on here than any of us know about, and we don't have to choose for anger and fear and bitterness and resentment. We can choose for love, and everything else will take care of itself. He writes, and once we stop locking ourselves up with wasted judgments and their attendant never-ending worries, we find that not only are we free, but there's no power in the universe capable of holding us captive again. So here's a hidden benefit to the Way of Mastery in Lesson 3, talking about dismantling every judgment and every perception that results in negativity. The hidden benefit, once we stop locking ourselves up with wasted judgments and their attendant never-ending worries, we find that not only are we free, but there is no power in the universe capable of holding us captive again. This freedom thing is your birthright. And the weirdest part about it is the only thing imprisoning you is you. Errors in thought, corrupt programming handed down through the bloodline, trauma energies you downloaded, trying to cope with very, very difficult things when you were younger. All of these things block you from reaping the benefits of your birthright. So, getting near the halfway point. Thank you for being here and listening. Please feel free to raise a hand, ask a question, make a statement, change the topic, as it were, if you wish. I'm in the middle of reading from Guy Finley's pre-publication book, Publisher's Advanced Copy book, The Book of One Love, One Life, One Journey, with Dr. Ellen Dickstein. The next chapter is titled Happiness and Life Purpose. At the beginning of this chapter, again, he puts one of his own quotes. Guy Finley quotes himself as saying, "We cannot hope to find true peace without fulfilling the purpose of our life. And we can't fulfill that purpose without awakening to the web of divine relationships within which the purpose of our being has already been sown." Wisdom, the ultimate key to lasting joy. And Guy Finley writes, "We all seek happiness in the best way we know how. We may seek it in other people, in material things, in achievement. Sometimes it's just that pizza with everything on it at 11 o'clock at night. And we do get some of those things, for some of us, maybe all of them. And yet, if we're honest, we'll admit that getting one thing is never the end. It often leads to us just wanting the next thing, and the next, and the next. Our wants are sometimes referred to as a bottomless basket, so that while they may lead to a temporary happiness, they rarely lead to a permanent one. To see this is true is the beginning of spiritual wisdom. In truth, this kind of higher wisdom isn't something so widely sought after, but it would serve us well to consider its timeless, unseen worth. For instance, when it comes to relationships, wisdom allows us to understand the minds and hearts of others. We can see them with compassion, and we can know how to act toward them in a way that will benefit all. At its deepest level is spiritual wisdom, which begins in self-knowledge. Honest self-knowledge leads to humility, seeing one's true place in the universe, and ultimately self-transcendence. So honest self-awareness leads to humility. Well, the ancient Aramaic definition for humility would fit beautifully here. Honest self-awareness will lead you to see and feel the highest and best in another and leave you willing to cooperate only with that highest and best in another. You will see that we're all the same and we're all connected. You'll see your true place in the universe. And you will see that all of your thoughts about yourself are not the truth of who you are. It's a false self. It's a false image. It's a mask. It's a distraction. It's a drug of choice at times. Your sense of yourself, who you are, your labels, your judgments, they're all false. They're all just made up. And they don't hold any more power over you than you give them when you pour your mind energy into them, or when you decide that they're really true, or they're really worth fighting for, or defending, or embellishing, or whatever you want to do with them. That's all an inside job. So when you dive in, when you are willing to pursue radical self-awareness and knowledge, it leads to humility, it leads you to see your true place in the universe, and ultimately, self-transcendence. Now, so what is it about your true place in the universe? I'm going to put a bookmark in here and hope at the end of reading some of these quotes, I'm going to come back and relate the story of Indra from ancient East Indian lore. My version as kind of riffing off of Joseph Campbell's version of that story. But here Guy Finley goes on and he writes, We don't often see the connection between true happiness and wisdom. However, the great sages have spoken of it for millennia. By revealing how wisdom leads to genuine happiness, they uncover a new pathway that we can take to reach a happiness that can't be diminished by any life circumstance. Here's a sampling of what they have to say. From the Old Testament, he gives a quote, "Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. She is more precious than rubies, and all things thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her." And then Seneca writes, quote, "Every day to a wise man is a new life," close quotes. And then he quotes Origen, quote, "Fall in love with wisdom, and she will keep you. Put her around you, and she will exalt you. Honor her that she may embrace you. For what can anyone find shameful in the love of wisdom, or in the person who professes himself a lover of wisdom?" And then he quotes Michel de Montaigne as saying, quote, "The most certain sign of wisdom is continual cheerfulness. Her state is like that of things in the regions above the moon, always clear and serene," close quotes. So true wisdom in this quote is evidenced by continual cheerfulness. If somebody's not happy, that's not a wise place for them to be. And then he quotes Henry David Thoreau as saying, quote, "When we are unhurried and wise, we perceive that only great and worthy things have any permanent and absolute existence. We perceive that petty fears and petty pleasures are but the shadow of reality. This is exhilarating and sublime," close quotes. The true value of aligning ourselves with these higher principles only becomes evident as we apply them to those turbulent moments that so often rock our lives. For instance, we all know that pretty much any time we run into some painful moments, we're often picked up and carried off by a negative reaction, telling us what we must do to set things straight. We all know the drill. Fix the offending person. Do what we have to do, whatever that may be, to make whatever is disturbing us go away. However, what we can't see here, and what we must learn too, is that we meet whatever disturbs us with a disturbed part of ourselves that is secretly a continuation of the original disturbance. I'm keeping this thing alive. Anytime I'm disturbed, it's an internal creation on my part. So if I continue to be disturbed, it's because I continue to keep this thing alive. Guy Finley writes, "You would think we ought to know by now that no negative effect can change anything for the better. The nature that produces a problem can't fix it. The sense of self identified with any reaction is powerless to do anything but perpetuate the pain of itself. And it perpetuates the moment it professes not to want." So, assuming that we'd like to step out of this painful circle of self, here's what needs to happen. When the disturbance comes, rather than frantically running around in our own mind trying to chase down what will prove itself yet again to be another false solution to our suffering, instead of that, we make a radical new choice. We collect all of ourselves as best we can, and we become as inwardly still as possible. But why, especially given the anxiety or fear that courses through us in that moment, why would we want to make that choice, let alone follow that course of action? And he quotes here Lao Tzu as a response. "In stillness, the muddled water returns to clarity." Quote, "In stillness, the muddied water returns to clarity," close quotes. This is where the wisdom of that Buddhist teaching comes in, where it says, don't just do something, stand there. right? Don't race off into action before you've gotten centered in stillness, before you've readjusted your filters to accept, allow, interpret only love. Guy Finley writes, the more quiet and consciously willing to become, the more we stand in silent awareness of all the troubled thoughts and feelings that want to move us and move into us and through us, then the more evident becomes that none of these reactions is our true self. Which means that whenever we bring whatever is disturbing us into our awareness of it, and we remain there as silent observer of that union, and then from out of that marriage we will witness the miracle of our rebirth. We are given the simplest of all instruction in the most concrete manner possible in this saying from the Old Testament, quote, be still and know that I am. And in parentheses, he says, God, close parentheses. Know that I am. And the point of this is because we're looking for purpose. We're looking for happiness and life purpose. Wisdom is the ultimate key to lasting joy. Well, so what's the wisdom about? Well, the wisdom is valuing and honoring truth above everything else. The truth of life, the truth of this moment, the truth of myself. He writes, in truth, this kind of higher wisdom isn't something to be that is so widely sought after because it takes work. And people aren't really interested in confronting their pains. They're more interested in numbing out from them. So he writes, this kind of higher wisdom is not widely sought after, and yet it would serve us well to consider its timeless, unseen worth. For instance, when it comes to relationships, wisdom allows us to understand the minds and hearts of others, and we can see them with compassion and know how to act towards them in a way that benefits all of us. When we do that, this at its deepest level is a spiritual wisdom, which begins in deep self-knowledge. Honest self-knowledge leads you to the awareness that you're the same as everyone else, that we're all just walking each other home, and it leads you to seeing your true place in the universe, and ultimately it leads you to transcendence. So your true place in the universe, what is that? What is that all about? Well, that makes me think of the story of Indra, and since nobody else has a hand up, I'm going to repeat the story of Indra. You can find this probably a better telling if you go to YouTube and type in the story of Indra and Joseph Campbell. And it might be one that he gave when he was doing an interview with Bill Moyers, which came out on public television as a big series. But the story of Indra is that there was this god, the king of the gods, Indra. And as he sat up there on his throne and looked down on the world, everything seemed to be going fine. And, as the king of the gods, he enjoyed all kinds of privileges. But one day he looked down on the earth, and there's this monster down there, Vitra, is running around, drying up all the water and starting fires. And Indra is, looking at this saying, well, this isn't good, and these are my subjects, and I should do something about this. And he's fretting over it until he happens to look down beside his throne, and he notices there's a bucket of lightning bolts down there. So he reaches down into the bucket and picks up a lightning bolt, and he throws it down at Vitra and vanquishes the demon, and the waters start flowing again, and the fires go out, and he thinks, wow, what a fine boy am I. I'm really special. As the king of the gods and somebody that just vanquished Vitra, I need a bigger palace. So he goes to the king of the he goes to the architect of the gods. It's another god who specifically just does architecture work. And he goes to him and he tells him, I need a bigger palace. My value, my fame, my worth is... So, yeah, the architect, god of architects, is like, no problem. That's what I'm here for. I love doing this stuff. So he starts expanding the palace. Problem is, every time Indra came back to look at the palace, he was never satisfied. It always had to be bigger. So the god of architecture went to the Brahmin and said, hey, look, I got a problem over here. I'm immortal. He's immortal. He wants me to do nothing but expand this palace, albeit and all these other jobs that could benefit from my expertise aren't getting done. And the Brahmin says, don't worry about it. Go back. I'll take care of it. A couple days later, Indra is sitting there in his palace, and along comes this little blue-black boy with a voice like rolling thunder, and he's so beautiful, and he sends off these energies that are so attractive that all the children are following him around. And he walks up to the palace, and Indra greets him and says, well, welcome, what are you doing here? And the little boy says, well, I heard that there's an Indra who lives in this palace that's greater than any Indra that's gone before him, and that he's making the palace bigger and more expansive and more glorious to fit his personality. And Indra was quite puffed up by this and thinking, well, yes, this is all true. How do you like the palace? And then he thought about it. And he said, wait a minute, what do you mean Indra's before me? And the little boy said, well, of course Indra's before you. There have been countless Indras before you. Well, how could that be? Well, the little boy says, well, Vishnu sleeps in the cosmic ocean, and a lotus flower grows from Vishnu's navel. And when the lotus flower blooms, there's a Brahmin that's born that lives on top of the lotus flower, and each time that Brahmin opens its eyes, a world like your world comes into existence, and each time that Brahmin closes its eyes, that world goes away, and every time he opens his eyes, another world just like your world comes into existence, and that world is ruled by an Indra, and every time the Brahmin closes its eyes, that world goes out of existence. Every time he opens its eyes, another world is created, ruled by another Indra, etc. And the life of that Brahmin is 10,000 years. When that Brahmin's life ends, the lotus flower retreats, and a new lotus flower is born. And the cycle continues. And then the little boy chuckles. And Indra is indignant. He says, what are you laughing at? And he looks down and there's a little trail of ants. And the little boy says, you see these ants? And Indra says, yes. And he says, former Indras all. Every one of these ants started because they believe in reincarnation, and you move up the line and you get more and more advanced with each reincarnation. So in that belief system, these ants used to be Indras that threw their lightning bolt and vanquished Vitra, and then thought they were too big for their own britches, and then they went crashing down to start over at the beginning of reincarnation again. Well, this shocked Indra to his core, and he decided, I do not want to go back and become an ant and have to start all over again. So he decided he would devote his life to prayer and meditation and move into the woods. Fine enough for him, but who's going to run the kingdom? And he has this beautiful wife, the queen. And she decides there's no way in heck I'm going to live in a little hut in the woods. So she goes to Brahman and she says, here's the problem. This king that wants to be a pauper, or he wants to be left alone, he's abandoning his work, what should I do? And the Brahmin says, don't worry about it. A day or two later, Brahman goes and talks to Indra and says, Indra, take a walk with me in the woods. Remember when you first came here? Remember how I gave you this book about the sociology of our kingdoms and everybody plays a role and you're the king. And, well, you have a role to play as king. And your wife has a role to play as queen to keep this whole system flowing. You're not better than anybody. You're not worse than anybody. You're an important part of the tapestry of life, of the orchestra, of the symphony. So, it's not appropriate for you to go off into the woods. Many, many people will suffer if you're not there doing your job to keep balance, to keep love, to keep the harmony of the spheres in alignment. That's your job. You're given great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. And so eventually he talked him into it, and Indra went back and was quite humble about his role and understood he played a valuable part, but it's just a part. And your purpose in life will be revealed to you more and more as you get more and more honest with what's actually going on within your thought system. So, I'm looking to see if anybody's put anything in the chat. Apparently there's an AI function that is trying to send me messages, so I thought there was a chat question. So we have plenty of time for comments or questions. It's just about a quarter till the hour. How can we support you? What's on your mind? Thank you all for being here. It's nice, rather full docket. And I'll remind everybody that we are having a support group tonight, so there'll be time to work on worksheets or ask questions or...
Tim?
Well, yes.
I sent the link of that Alan Watts podcast to...
The chat?
I did, but I sent it early this morning to my sober grandson because I thought he would just love it. But I hesitated to send it to my middle boy, Jacob, because I'm in a position to want to give him advice and fix and all that stuff. So I'm looking at that. I haven't decided whether. Also, I thought in his case, since he is still using, as far as I know, he may think it is a kind of permission to be an addict.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And, the point of that is he could use anything as that permission.
Right.
And if you say, I don't want to give him this because he might use this, well, you don't know.
I don't know. That's true.
So hold your intention as pure as you can and make your decision from there. It'll be okay whether you show it to him or not. But what you're showing him something will not be what causes his downfall or his decisions. He is his own agent. That's the thing to remember, right? There's that codependent stuff you want to break, the cycle, every little tendril of it that you can be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a codependent type thing, thinking, I shouldn't say this to him because it might, blah, 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 cause something in him. Well, it's not cause. He has his own choices to make.
Yeah.
Just as you do.
Mm. And another unrelated thought is when you're talking about how we're not separate, I remember a grandson came home from school one day. He was being shown the basics of wrestling, and I know nothing about wrestling. But he said, you won't believe this, but sometimes the best way to beat somebody is to come in really, really close. And I was thinking, in some way, I feel as if I don't know how to do this, but I feel as if I can come in really close to somebody who's a trigger. I know it's not the same kind of close. I just remember when we were volunteering at hospice, Tim and I, we might be frightened or repulsed by a person getting ready to die. But as soon as we had our hands on them to wash them or feed them or turn them over, something became okay. We had a different kind of access to them that took away our fear or revulsion. I'm just thinking about how to fit these together, or even if they do. But do you have any thoughts about that?
About the last part I really got, that when you're with them and you're feeling revulsion, it can melt away if you connect with them physically, if you're connecting with them from that pure human presence.
Yeah.
But the other, I'm not sure what you're trying to connect that to.
Well, it's the same way of closing a gap. It's coming close, but of course the intent of coming close in a wrestling match is to get close enough without getting hurt while you're approaching, to be able to use your tools to master them, to win the wrestling match. So that probably doesn't apply, but the physical proximity has always been a core issue of mine anyway. So I don't have the right, somehow it seems like mushy territory. I'm not very clear about that.
Well, so think of it this way. The piece that makes it feel mushy or negative is what is the motivation for it, right?
Yeah.
So the closeness is not the problem. Sexuality isn't the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Naked human bodies aren't the problem, right? Intercourse between men and men and women and men and women, this is not the problem. Problem is, why am I doing it? What's motivating me? What am I trying to use it as a drug or a distraction or a numbing out for something else I don't want to face? In other words, is there a level of dishonesty, right? If I'm not wide awake and fully aware, fully honest with myself about what my motivations are for getting close to another, putting hands on another, being sensual or sexual or flirting with another, if I'm not aware of that, that's the problem. That's where it starts to get. If it doesn't create the serious problem, it opens the potential for a serious problem to develop. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So if you start exploring, for instance, for yourself, what are the motivations in you when you go to get close to somebody? Now you have a fruitful topic for exploration.
There's something comes to mind. Years ago, I saw some videos of a kind of dancing that people were doing, but it was not ballet or tap or even standard type modern dancing. It was people kind of falling all over each other, rolling around each other, pushing off and pulling into each other. It was like bodies being given permission to not touch, but have total body contact for the sake of some kind of artistry. But all I could think of is, wow, how I felt like a little kid. All of a sudden, I could do this and it would be okay.
Yes.
You know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
it comes one of the keys for me in what you're saying is it comes to me as like a little kid feeling. Well, that's it. These are these immature, sometimes wounded, sometimes just natural impulses, and I haven't sorted them out.
no,
I'm not really clear.
Yeah. This leads to a whole lot of things like Marwa, who's living with us, the Iraqi woman. Thank God she's not a trigger. She could be because she's wonderful and in every way just a lovely person who's very affectionate. And she'll fuss with my hair, what I have of it. I'm in your department almost, not really, but I mean, you know, she'll she'll ask me to fix her hair, or she'll hug me when she goes off to school very early in the morning. And here she is in a hurry, and she takes the time to do that. This is not something I've ever done. It's like I've been given this huge gift of a person who isn't a trigger, who is offering this kind of connecting. And I'm in awe of it, watching it, feeling safe. I don't feel as if there's a danger that it's going to become a trigger. And I'm thinking, how did I luck out with this? What kind of good fortune is this? And yet I'm being given the chance to be normal, what I think of as normal, affectionate interaction with a family member. She's like a daughter to us.
Okay. And so what are you doing with it?
I'm just marveling at it.
Marvel at it and do worksheets around it or EFT tapping around any kind of tightness or tension or awkwardness, right? You just want to understand that the tightness or tension or awkwardness is being generated inside you.
It isn't that, but you got it, though. You just said it. I think here's my chance. Here's a trigger person, possible trigger person, right in my kitchen. I could get the whole shebang here, and I'm not doing it. And so I'm watching that, and I'm thinking, I'm lucky, but when we connect, I'm missing some addict's connection. I think I might be missing out on something, and yet I'm so glad to be safe.
What do you mean you're missing out on an addiction?
There's when I hug her, I don't get any kind of a endorphin hit. I don't get whatever it is that you get when the addict gets the hit. I'm just happy.
Okay.
That's okay. That's good.
Perfect. That's good. And because you're bringing it up on a show like this, there's some part of you that thinks something's wrong here. Something's missing here.
Yeah, something's missing.
Yeah, nothing's missing.
Okay, good.
This is the healthier part, right? Here's
Yeah.
the unhealthy part that used to be layered over on top of any interaction like that, but that's missing. Well, that's not missing. It was never intended to be there in the first place. It isn't necessary here.
Yeah.
Right? It isn't that auto defense mechanism from the unconscious that kicks in that has you going into hypersexuality or craving or obsession. It just lets you be there in the moment and appreciate it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I'm thinking in a way there is something there, but it's spread out into the normal. I am being fed by this, and I was kind of denying the fact, but it's fed healthy food in a good way. So I'll have to think about that some more because words aren't there right now, but I'm thinking what luck. I mean, a friend of mine was saying, you are so wonderful to take in this family. And I'm thinking, it was pure luck. After having had the experience with Michael Bennett, I'm very careful about how we open our house. And I'm really not going to do that in any ill-advised way. And yet we let Marwa in and her boys in before we explored anything. But we were given the right people. That was luck.
Yes. And then What you do with it makes all the difference.
So far, so good.
The flow of life is just out there.
Yeah.
And what we do with it is what creates our experience of it.
Mm. Ooh, thanks for taking the thing.
You're very welcome and deserving. And
there's a text for you in there from Sally.
Sally says she's looking forward to support group tonight. She's feeling a little ungrounded from her travel. So
Okay.
Blessings there, and I'll look forward to that. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And please try to remember that every single time things didn't work out the way I thought they should, they always